on future of water sharing agreement between India and China. The significance of the selection of the topic is that we know that water has been a source of contention among countries since ages. However, in the post-Cold War, most of the nations have been talking about cooperation more than conflict. And also some of the theories of international relations also talks about cooperation between countries regarding various aspects. And in this context, water-based cooperations is also an important aspect where the countries can come up together to utilize it properly for a larger extent. Therefore, in my presentation, I will be speaking about the rivers shared by India and China, China's intention on river Brahmaputra, and probable area of convergences, issue of divergences, efforts taken by both the countries, and future scenario, and lastly the conclusion. Beginning with rivers shared by India and China, Tibetan Plateau is known to be the most important source of water for the Asian countries. Because most of the rivers of Asia like Indus, Satluj, Brahmaputra, Irrawaddy, Salween and Mekong all originate from this Tibetan plateau. Therefore, Tibetan plateau, which is known as the roof of the world, is the most important source of these rivers. With regard to the rivers shared by India and China shares mainly Indus, Satluj and Brahmaputra, but I have mainly taken Brahmaputra river for my presentation. Brahmaputra river originates from Talung So Lake in southwestern Tibet as the Yarno Sangho river, and then it flows down towards southern Tibet, entering India through Arunachal Pradesh by the name Siang, and then it again flows southwest through Assam Valley by the name Brahmaputra, and finally it flows down towards Bangladesh. Coming to India, China's intention on river Brahmaputra. As Dhanashree said, China is sufficient in water, but then still it has still been facing water issues. Mainly the northern part of China has been facing acute water shortages because of reasons like desertification, and this desertification has been affecting the agricultural production to a large extent. Also, Chinese massive population has been producing significant water resource challenges. Therefore, Chinese government has been making plans of diverting the flow of the river Brahmaputra towards the north to meet the water challenges. And in probable area of convergence, India and China, they have not been able to converge on areas related to water. However, they can converge and cooperate on these areas. Firstly, data and information sharing. China has not been sharing the data and information regarding the flow of the river. But if China shares data and information regarding flow of the rivers with India, it will be largely both the countries will be gaining a lot. It is in the interest of both the countries, and also with water management. Both the countries can cooperate on the utilization of the water resources, and also to what extent and to what amount they will use. In this aspect, also both the countries can cooperate and converge. And with regard to disaster management, disaster management is also another area where both the countries can converge. And with regard to this disaster management, I have taken the example of building of dams. Most of the countries, when they build dams, sometimes it happens that it leads to flood and drought situation in the lower riparian countries. So in order to avoid such situation, both the countries can come up together with better disaster management policies. So these are some of the areas where both the countries can cooperate. And with regard to issue of divergences, there are a number of diverging issues. First is the differing interests. Differing interests can come up between the upper and the lower riparian countries. The upper riparian countries might feel that their concerns, their priority concerns and security perceptions are different from that of the lower riparian countries. This can be applied in Sino-Indian case. And nature of settlement is also another diverging issue. The population pattern and concentration play an important role in guiding water requirements. For example, China's part of Brahmaputra Valley is sparsely populated, whereas India's part of Brahmaputra Valley is densely populated. Therefore, more the population, more the water requirement. So countries with high population will try to make use of their water resources more than the lower riparian, more than the other countries. And difference in governance and political structure is also another issue of divergence. Authoritarian form of government might not be willing to have cooperation on any matter with another country, whereas a democratic country might be willing to cooperate on certain issues with other countries. Therefore, there are basic contradictions between democratic and undemocratic countries. And history of mistrust is also another issue of divergence. We all know that both India and China have been living in a history of mistrust. So they are not even willing to share information and data on the flow of the rivers. So this is another issue of divergence. One of the most important issue of divergence is the lack of institutional mechanism and shared values. Because of lack of institutional mechanism and shared values, both the countries are not able to cooperate each other on water-related issues. And with regard to the efforts, proper solution on water issue is in larger interest of India. Therefore, India has been trying to cooperate more and more with China. So, Indian officials and ministers have been talking more about principles on the use of transboundary rivers, and also using these principles to push forward for storage dams and hydropower projects. However, such principles can be useful only if there is a clear and defined treaty, which is absent in both the countries. China and India, they don't have any water sharing treaty. Indian government has also been abiding by the principle of bilateralism in dealing with transboundary rivers. With regard to future scenario, Tibetan water is significant for India because the population is increasing in the country, and also the various developmental endeavors may also compel India to pressurize China to rethink on its water policies. Therefore, tensions can also build up if China tries to control more and more of the transboundary waterways. It is also difficult to analyze the relationship between both the countries due to the lack of a probable water sharing treaty. China should also reconsider and rethink on its water policies, and also about its plans of diverting the flow of the river water towards the north. Because it is not, if China goes up with its plans, it is not just India which is going to affect, but also Bangladesh, which is also a lower riparian of river Brahmaputra. Therefore, the best strategy for the lower riparian countries is to engage China in a dialogue process and persuading it not to construct dams and diversion projects on the Tibetan rivers at a cost for environmental degradation and livelihood. Therefore, I would like to conclude by saying that rivers play a very important role in international relations. Countries should cooperate more than indulging themselves into conflict. But it will be imperative to see. It will also be imperative to see if they are willing to cooperate or not. And one of the biggest challenges for India and China is that because of the fact that there is no institutional mechanism or a treaty which can solve the problem between on water issues with India and China. And as Dhanashree said, all water, food and energy security are all related. Therefore, the water management issue has explicit link with water, energy and food security. So unless there is a shared institutional framework to manage the rivers, cooperation is not possible, and also countries might also resort to unlawful means to protect their own interests. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation.